Welcome into ProBox TV. That's right, we are going on the road after a fantastic January start to 2025. We're going across the country. That's right, the Chicken Ranch Casino, Jamestown, California. To help me break down all the action in studio, Jimmy Smith alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, also joined by the man who put this entire thing together, Gary Jonas, the boss. Thank you so much. I know you're not flying us across the country without a good reason. Without a great main event, tell us all about it.
Yeah, no, on February 19th at the Chicken Ranch Casino in Sacramento, we've got Gabe Flores Jr. versus Jose Ariano. And Gabe's an interesting story, meaning he was a top amateur, very popular fighter, sells out in the area. But he was, projected to do a lot of big things in the sport, got signed with a top rank at a very young age. And he took a couple of disappointing losses. I mean, no shame in the losses he took, losing to Venado Lopez. But I think it's probably that, in hindsight, I'm not judging anyone because I do a fair amount of this myself, but in hindsight, probably was moved quicker and he needs a little more time. So we're going to give Gabe Flores Jr. a chance to turn back and be a prospect again on the Future Stars show and start to escalate his fights. So, in his opponent, Jose Ariano, has been on ProBox TV a few times. Tough kid. I mean, he's been a problem for every top prospect we've had. He gave the Brazilian Cardoso a very tough fight, and he arguably beat the Puerto Rican prospect Jacob Gomez. So we're trying to give Gabe an opportunity to start over, but we're not giving him anything easy by any stretch. So we think that's going to be a fun, good main event.
Paulie, when you look at this main event, he talks about getting a prospect back on top, but Arellano, a very tough guy. That's not I know you're thinking it by the look on your face. That's not an easy fight in the main event.
Yeah, we like the boss said, we've had Ariano here a few times, and every time I see him, this guy's bring a fight, and every time I see him, he's given a real tough fight to any prospect he's fought. He's been put in touch himself. And we talk about Flores, okay, he was moved a little too fast. What about Ariano? Ariano was never moved at all. He's just kind of thrown in with everybody. So he's kind of made it through the school of hard knocks, but he's earned his keep. That's why he's here. We're bringing him back against Flores because he's earned his keep, and he makes a tough fight of it every single time, and he really tests you. I can remember, talking to Ariano. He's been in camp with Shakur Stevenson and the likes like that, where, if you're spending time with those kind of championship-level fighters, even as a sparring partner, and they bring you in consistently into camps, that means you're earning your keep. You know how to fight. And this guy, when you put him in with these kind of prospects, I guess when he's sparring world championship fighters consistently, put him in with these kind of prospects, he knows he belongs in there, and he fights like that. Listen, he's not going to be the prospect himself, but Ariano, if you're a pretender, he'll expose that, and he'll prevent you from becoming a contender.
Yeah, but that comfort level, Gary, you talk about it, the ProBox TV brand, right, the stage itself. Ariano's been there before, and as you know, you kind of get that sense of like, this is my home, I'm defending my turf, this is my platform. So Ariano might bring his best. Is that what you're expecting?
I am. I think he's been close a couple of times, and he's frustrated. And I think he's confident for this fight. He believes he's going to win, and he has to. But I think people are underestimating Gabe Flores Jr. and potentially rightfully so. He has a chance to restart that and get back in his winning ways and be impressive against somebody who's a respected fighter and opponent in Ariano. So it's an interesting night. Gabe Flores has some pressure on him. He's got to step up and say, hey, I am that guy. And some people believe maybe he's not. If he's not, Ariano's the guy to expose him.
When you look at Flores, Chris, we were talking about him before we went on air, you went, nice boxer. He goes, not a huge punch, you can tell by the record, not a power guy, but when you talked about combinations and flow, he's definitely that kind of boxer. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I called a lot of his fights on the way up. I actually called the Venado Lopez fight that he lost, and no one knew who Venado Lopez was. In hindsight, when you look at that fight, you're like, all right, I can kind of give this 21-year-old kid a little reprieve that he lost to such a fantastic fighter who became a champion who had multiple defenses, afterwards. But moved very quickly early on. A lot of hype around him. Top Rank stable really liked him. They loved how popular he was. He went out there, he had a good-looking style. He was long, he was strong. Jason Velez, who was a former top contender, he knocked him out with a single shot. So he got everyone very, very hyped up. Very, very tough matchup, especially at the time. But he showed a ton of heart in that fight. He was outgunned, he was outskilled, he was out-physicaled by the more mature fighter. but he made it to the end. A lot of people didn't think he was going to with how much punishment he took, but he showed that he's got that grit. Now he's a little bit older, a little more mature, getting into that man strength a little bit, moved up in weight now, was really struggling. So I think there's a lot of fight left in a guy like Gabe Flores Jr. But as everyone's on the panel here knows, Ariano is no joke. If he's not ready, if he's not that guy, it's going to be exposed.
But Jimmy, like you said, nice boxer. Pretty. No marks.
Too pretty to be touched. But one of the things
It's Raging Bull.
one of the things we talked about, we're going to have more references, just so you know. One of the things you guys talk about on ProBox TV, especially as guys get more mature and guys get more comfortable, we've seen boxers become bigger punchers later on in their career here on ProBox TV. What does that take, Paulie?
I mean, it takes, first of all, a dedication to your craft. If you start to see guys who are starting to, put the whole package together, so to speak, as far as becoming a complete fighter, it tends to happen. ProBox, like we talk about, it'll break you as a pretender or it'll make you into a contender. Right. And what you have here with these kind of situations is when you see those guys developing, they're developing because of the strength of schedule. The strength of schedule forces you to have to work on those subtle things and sort of show them in the fight, because you don't win these kind of fights if you don't show all the little subtleties as well. This is a tough level of competition, but when you have it, you can show it here.
Well, our co-main events often, Gary, in our co-main event, that's the show stealer of the night. The co-main event in California features an undefeated fighter from my hometown. That's going to be a banger in the co-main.
Yeah, I mean, I love this fighter. Emiliano, call him Emmy Moreno, 11-0, just 19 years old, Mexican kid out of LA. This guy is fun to watch. And, as he's getting older, bigger and stronger, he's getting into his man body. And at 19, we're not even close to that yet. You're already seeing signs of his game as an action fighter changing. And he's just strong, and he's aggressive, and he throws a ton of punches. So he's fan-friendly, and we have very high hopes for him. So, taking on Cesar Francis. Now, Cesar was on ProBox a few times, had some big wins on ProBox. So that's, Cesar was not long ago a contender. That's going to be a big, big step up for Moreno. It's similar to what Blas did with Angel Ruiz and what Najee did with Castillo. Well, now here goes Moreno. He's going to get his chance. Same record. He's going to step up into his chance to make a statement and take on somebody who's definitely formidable. So I'm excited about that fight. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Emmy handled him easily. And if he does, then Emiliano Moreno is all that. If he just handles him, well, it's good. It's a good sign, and he'll learn, he'll grow from it. So, but again, that kind of makes you nervous, and we'll have people nervous ringside to make sure, with that fight coming, it's going to make a lot of people uptight. So.
Gary, I'm uptight about this one. You're talking about how much you like Emiliano Moreno. He's not dipping his toe in the water here. He's diving in head first into the deep end. This is a really, really tough fight for a young guy coming up that we think has a lot of promise.
Yeah, I also think it's what version of Cesar Francis shows up. Sometimes Cesar Francis shows up and he's tough to beat. I mean, when he decides to show up, he's tough to beat. He's in there for a fight. He's ready for a tough fight. He can punch. He's long. He's rangy. But also, you get the Cesar Francis that sometimes just sort of shows up just to show up. And then, a guy like Emiliano Moreno can sort of consume that kind of fighter and overcome him very easily. So that's why I think when the boss says, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins easily, I think it depends on the version of Francis. If Francis is motivated, this is a tough fight. A motivated Francis, he's got all the physical tools. It just says he has the mental tools. Is he going to become mentally ready? Because physically, we've always known. We had Francis here, like Gary said, he's a former contender himself.
One of our, I think, knockouts of the year a few years ago.
So if that motivated guy shows up, okay, then, Moreno is going to be in for a fight, and we'll see, what kind of prospect he is. But you got to also be leery of which Francis shows up.
Yeah, all right, but here's the deal. We're sitting here a little bit nervous. The boss is trying not to show it if he is nervous. But Chris, definitely nervous. When you look at this fight, Moreno's not nervous. When we talk to that kid, when you talk about confidence, I think of Moreno. When you think you don't know how to lose, Chris, I think of Moreno and his attitude. He believes he can beat anybody in the world.
But honestly, that's his style. He needs to have that mindset to fight the way that he fights. He's so aggressive. And I think, Paul, you said this on a past show. He goes from 0 to 100. Yeah. He starts out, he's kind of playing around, playing with his food a little bit, finding his jab, and then all of a sudden he gets touched with something, and boom, it's off to the races. And he is just go, 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 go. If he is not 100% confident in himself, he wouldn't be able to do that. He stays in the pocket. He's ripping. He's slipping. I mean, he's got it all. I mean, as you said, boss, he's super, super entertaining. But yeah, this is the kind of fight that's really gonna show what this kid has and what his potential really is at.
Yeah, but Paulie, when he's on, when you talk about flash and crowd-pleasing kind of style, Moreno's the guy.
Yeah, and when he's on, I mean, it comes a point in every fight where he's going to be on. Like I said, like we've said, you know, he goes at 0, and sometimes you're like, okay, what is he doing? And then all of a sudden, he's just boom, 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 and he doesn't stop. And then before you know it, to this point, he's gotten the stoppage at that moment. So that's why I'm curious to see what kind of motivation Francis has. I could see Francis giving him trouble. But when Moreno decides, okay, it's on, does Francis have the stick-to-itiveness mentally to sort of, you know, deal with this youth excitement of a very explosive fighter in Moreno? And if he does, then we may get some answers about Moreno as well that we're yet to see, that, you know, every prospect eventually has to answer.
Gary Jonas, thank you so much for joining us. I got to say, you make our panel nervous. That means you're doing great things, boss. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, guys.
We will see you February 19th. That's right, Chicken Ranch Casino in California, going cross-country for a great main event. Right now, download the ProBox TV app. Find out why millions are watching and join us.